It's almost week 10 for the NFL. And so that means, of course, we have week 10 DFS that we need to chat about and strategize. We have our own free contest this week. The link is in the description, and we would love to have you join us. Let's chat how we did last week first, and then we'll talk about this week's games.
Yeah, so last week we had the right game. It was the Rams and the Seahawks, but we were on the wrong side of the ball. And I should have known that or been suspect of it because I didn't like playing Kenneth Walker the third. And it really bothered me because I really thought the Rams were going to be up in this game. But as it turned out, it was a very competitive game and it was kind of both sides, but it was more on the Geno Smith and the Jackson Smith Najigba side of it. And we needed to be over there playing that side. And we weren't there. So we had Matthew Stafford and then Puka Nakua let us all down when he decided to throw a punch and get ejected from the game. No way we can, really predict that that's going to happen. So it was kind of doomed. I did have one lineup that paid, but it wasn't a whole lot better. Any insights you feel like Quentin in this lineup or
I think it's more pointing to the fact that that's kind of why we go with the strategy of identifying the games we like first and then diving into the players and really talking about multiple lineups here because the difference in how a game can go just depending on how the first couple possessions set up and which players are prime for a big game can lead to a lot of variance within that one game sample size.
yeah.
And so we were all on the Rams, but it did end up being a higher scoring game. And without DK Metcalf playing a contributing role, we really saw JSN break out. So that kind of seemed to be a trend in the winning lineup was
Yeah.
key injuries kind of highlighting other players that are stepping up in that role. So JSN got to step up. Mike Gesicki with T. Higgins uh, was stepping up. And
Yeah.
then Jacoby Myers with no Devontae Adams there to for competitions. And then Kamara was the benefit of the Olave injury.
Yeah,
So
that's very
Yeah.
true. I
Well, and
I normally would play like both sides of a game that I liked, but last week I just didn't like the games and I played very little daily fantasy last week because I didn't like the games. I don't know if you were the same way or not.
yeah, I ended up just playing few lineups. I got lucky that
Yeah.
I liked Chase Brown and Gesicki, and those kind of carried a lot of my lineups. But other than that, it was kind of way too many plays. Where this week we have kind of a narrow pool.
I did want to call out at least half of the winning lineup isn't eligible for this weekend because they're either on a bye week or they're playing tonight on Thursday. Because we have Cleveland Browns, Green Bay Packers, Raiders, and the Seahawks all on bye this week. So it's going to all be new players this weekend.
It is.
Again, a lot of the teams we're used to going to are either in the Thursday, Monday, Sunday night, so they might not be available on the slate either. So something to keep in mind.
So let's kick it off with San Francisco at Tampa Bay. San Francisco is favored over under 50, so it's one of the higher over unders. What do y'all like here? McCaffrey might come back.
I think he's supposed to. They activated him. He's had that bye week, and they're projecting him to play.
The salary's also representing that, I think, a bit.
Yeah, no
I didn't
discount.
think I don't think he's actually activated yet.
I saw he's in the window. They
He's in the
activated his window to
window.
return.
Yes, but they
Um,
haven't actually said he's active but he is in the window. Anyhow.
uh, but yeah, you're right, Lauren. But not much of a discount for his 10-week injury or 9-week injury, I guess. He's still the third most expensive on DraftKings and the second most expensive option on FanDuel. So you really still have to pay up to see what you want for CMC this week.
That's crazy. I'm not paying for him.
No, I don't think I can justify it. And I don't see the coaching pushing him for that full workload week one back.
I don't either. Jordan Mason is healthy and he's not discounted either, given the fact that he might be sitting behind Christian McCaffrey and he's at 8,100. So no discount there either. All of these 49er players are pretty pricey.
They are. And with so many questions of like they're all kind of banged up, they're all coming back. I think we think that they're gonna have more weapons. They're definitely gonna be healthier than they left the bye week. left to the bye week from. Um, I think the main beneficiary of that is just Purdy. Purdy has a pretty good salary. You don't have to take the risk of in on Kittle or Samuel and paying those high salaries, and you're going to get
Yeah,
all the benefit from it. Especially if CMC's back, then that's just another weapon for little dump offs to potentially go 70 yards.
I agree. I like playing Purdy without any of the other ones.
What about the
Uh,
other side? Anyone from Tampa Bay y'all like?
I think the schedule makers did Tampa Bay kind of dirty on this matchup because they're coming off the Monday night game. That was a emotional overtime loss to the Chiefs, and 6 days back they have to play 49ers off a bye. I think the 49ers are gonna look like that Super Bowl contending team that the team thought they were starting the season and just blow out the Bucks. I'm off the Bucks this week.
What about Cade Otton? Judy, I know you and I chat Cade Otton, the other side of fantasy, but what about
I do
for
like Kate
DFS?
Otten. Yeah, I like Kate Otten. He's pretty cheap at 6,400. So between him and Kittle, 6,400 and 8,000, I definitely like Kate Otten instead, just to be a little different there. I could get on the Bucks bandwagon, but we'll
They've
move on
gotten it
because there's
done. They've
some.
surprised all year, so
They have. They looked good last week, last Monday night against the Chiefs. They surprised me that they can pull it all together and still be competitive without Evans and Godwin. So that has been super surprising. But now they have even their backup wide receivers hurt as well. And there's only so much work you can give all of these running backs and still have some mystery to your play calling.
yeah. I think I like Cade Otton. He will see a good target share. We know that as the number one option, but his salary's really started to creep up the past couple weeks since he's taken that number one target role. And I think this week I'm looking more for the cheaper pump plays for tight end.
Well, let's move on to Detroit at Houston. Detroit's only favored by 3.5, which is a little surprising to me. I kind of expect Houston to not do nearly as well as Vegas thinks they're going to do. Um, what do y'all think here? Is Nico Collins going to be back? And this is going to be a different Houston team, and we should think about spending some money here?
So Nico Collins' window to return is open, but he hasn't practiced Wednesday or Thursday. So it looks like he's not going to be active for this game. I actually like CJ Stroud in this game, and I have to go with the story that the Lions get out to a big lead and Stroud has to throw 40 times. And you kind of have to think back to week 4 when Detroit played the Seahawks, and Kenneth Walker III ran up 31 fantasy points, along with Geno Smith racking up 25 fantasy points to make this that game in your head. And Quinten, I think you have a different opinion of this.
I am the counter argument for this. So Stroud, I like playing Stroud whenever he can just beat up on a bad defense. And he gets to play 6 games against the AFC South, so we get a lot of opportunities to see that. But Detroit's defense has just looked recently, and I think they'll be able to kind of shut Stroud down, especially if Nico's not in. Then it's just Tank Dell, and you're gonna have Branch lined up against Tank Dell, and I just don't think a lot of other parts will be able to contribute to have Stroud pay off his price.
Are there any
And
good costs here? Any cheap players that we should keep an eye on as we think about building or move on to Buffalo at Indy?
Let's move on.
Okay,
yeah,
Buffalo is headed to Indianapolis. Buffalo is favored by 3.5. Another one where I don't know. I think I expect some of these to be larger than they are in the spread, but over under is only 48.5. What about this one? What are y'all focusing on?
so personally, I like this matchup. We got a dome matchup. Both of these offenses have the potential to get up there. We've had a couple games with Flacco under center for the Colts, and last week was definitely a miss. They couldn't do anything. I think this week will be better. Hopefully, they can get the run game more established, and offense will just be better functioning than we saw Sunday night. And Buffalo is just going to destroy this defense. Like we see Allen as forget if him or Hurts are at the highest salary this week, but one of the top two most expensive options. and he's going to be worth it in my book. It's hard to pin down the receiver, but I like Allen.
So you think they run up the score here? Because, yeah, I'll agree with you on the Buffalo side. The problem is I don't agree with you on the Colts side whatsoever. So Ryan Kelly is out. He was put on IR. They don't have a center. They've got a backup center. And now we got Joe Flacco playing with a backup center. And it doesn't look like maybe Michael Pittman's going to be there either. Yeah, he didn't practice on Thursday either with his back finger injury. So we're going to take out those two playmakers from this offense. The center is the one that worries me the most because you put any pressure on Flacco, it's not like he can run. So he better be handing it off quickly to Jonathan Taylor. And the Bills are just going to key on that.
Yeah, but even the Bills keying on the running back hasn't really helped them too much this season, and they've allowed some monster performances on the ground. Derrick Henry crushed them, which Henry is in a league of his own, but I think they're just going to be more successful. That Colts offense kind of thrives on the play action game, and you need that baseline running game to be working, which it wasn't against Minnesota. So Bills
There's
just
a
do not have.
reason, and it's because this is a losing Colts team that can't play and they can't open a hole on the line. And comparing Jonathan Taylor's situation to Derrick Henry is just not fair, in my opinion, because Henry plays on a winning team with a good line. The whole supporting staff here is bad for the Colts.
I think it's going to look a lot better. Minnesota has good running defense, and it's going to be a good test for them. Definitely had some games where Taylor has impressed this season, and I like him in this spot as a good bring back uh, for that side of the ball. But really, I'm focused on the Buffalo pass catching options. The Cooper, Shakir, and Coleman are all sitting around the same price range, and it's tough to imagine that one of those doesn't come through for a tournament spot.
Well,
Who
one
do you
of
I
them
like?
feel like
probably
it'd have
isn't
to
going to
be.
play.
I was about to say, I feel like it'd have to be Shakir then, because the other two are questionable.
The other two
So
have both had wrist injuries, and Keon Coleman didn't practice on Thursday. The other two did, but Coleman, they didn't yesterday, but Keon Coleman also was out on Thursday, not even a participant in any way, shape, or form.
yeah, I think I'm more keyed in on Cooper. If he's progressing well from his wrist injury, then he does have that kind of build that has just beat the Colts this season. That true like outside X receiver. So I like Cooper, and if you want to pay up and stack with Allen, I don't think a lot of people will be using their salary that way. So it could be an interesting play in a tournament.
I like the running backs, the Bills running backs here. So James Cook, I love taking a shot on Ray Davis as well. One of the two sites doesn't have the right pricing on Ray Davis because he's 5,800 on FanDuel and 55 on DraftKings, and that's way too close for what we normally see. So one of them's wrong. I think it's the DraftKings side because they should be a little bit lower on a player like Ray Davis. So they're probably too high, which tells me I ought to be taking him on FanDuel.
Yeah, I think he's a good value on FanDuel.
Well, shall we continue to the Jets at Arizona briefly?
Sure. Briefly.
Jets are favored. It's an over-under of 46, so technically this game is supposed to fall into our games that we think about and discuss. I'm not sure if there's many parts in this we'd want to spend the salary on.
Yeah, I'm surprised the point total's this high. I think this is
Yeah.
our dud game. Somehow last week the Cardinals beat Chicago and Kyler Murray had less than 5 fantasy points and Marvin Harrison Jr. was less than 3 fantasy points and they still won.
Yeah, we've really seen Arizona's defense kind of come into form, and they've actually looked like a better defense the recent weeks. So I was surprised to see a 46-point total. Those offenses have been very hit or miss, and I would say the defenses are the strength currently. So I'm kind of with you. If anything gets done on this, I think it's going to be on the ground with either Brees Hall or James Conner just getting over 20 carries and
Yeah.
maybe breaking a couple. So
I
I think
like
if
Brees Hall. I'm
yeah,
sad that we haven't seen him break anything really this year. So he hasn't seemed like he had the explosiveness that he did last year.
I agree. Like there's been some plays where definitely would have housed him in last season, I felt like, and we haven't seen that 70-yard kind of breakaway
No.
speed, which we know he has.
Maybe this game.
Yeah. That's about the only piece I'm willing to touch here, though.
Yeah.
You kind of mentioned the Arizona defense at 3,700 on FanDuel and 2,900 on DraftKings. Is that something to consider, or is this not a defense to even consider this week?
I think you can flip a coin here and go a defense on either side of the ball. I think the Jets are a little bit more talented, but I always like leaning the home defense as well. So both are in play, and I do think it's going to be a lower scoring game in general.
Well, let's continue on then to Atlanta at New Orleans. Favored, over under is 46. What do y'all think here? I know London is a bit questionable this week after that injury last week and going out. Does that mean Mooney or Pitts are good values, or are we seeing their
I, s-
prices respond?
I saw London was a limited participant in practice. So in my mind, I think he's going to be on track to play through that hip injury, which really kind of puts into question. It almost be nice if he was out, just to have a little bit more clarity on where those targets are going to go. I do think that Atlanta's going to put up some points in this matchup, but they spread it out so evenly.
Yeah, I still think there's a chance we don't see him. They don't need him. So why wouldn't you give him some extra rest or at least not use him very much, not have him play as many snaps and protect him a little bit or let him get healthy completely and bench him when you don't need him in this game to win it for sure. I can't believe that Atlanta's only favored by 3.5.
Yeah, that's weird to me. I
Yeah,
mean, the Saints
unless
just don't have receivers.
they have no receivers. They fired their coach. So we do sometimes see that motivational bounce in the midseason when you fire your coach that suddenly your players get all motivated and they have a great game and they win that next game. But in this case, there literally aren't players to get motivated because they're
Yeah.
all hurt.
Yeah, I just don't think they have the talent to kind of match that 3.5 point line.
Yeah, I don't either. I do like Taysom Hill in this game at tight end. His price, especially over on DraftKings at 4,000, is too good because of the numerous ways that he will be used in this game. And they may be laying a lot of responsibility on him from all sides of the ball. Pass it, catch it, run it. He might
I
do it
agree.
all.
I've kind of circled this one as my tight end game. So I really like Taysom Hill. Even if you want to get a little cheaper, Jawan Johnson and Foster Moreau are both in play just because the receiving core is decimated
Yeah.
and they've been involved in the red zone. And then if London's out, Kyle Pitts I think is a high ceiling option for his price.
Yeah, I agree. I do like Bijan Robinson in this game too, because I can see him just getting out to that lead and handing it off to Bijan or Tyler Algier.
Yeah, I like Algier. If we go with that blowout mentality, I think they would save Bijan.
Continue on to Pittsburgh at Washington.
This one's fun. I think both these offenses have beat their expectations to what the public market thought they were starting the season. I think if we kind of were talking about this game before the season started and it was Pittsburgh Washington, we would have thought there'd be like 17 points scored in this. So this one is a lot more fun than I think the 45.5 point line shows. Do you
I'm
have any
still,
interest?
I think I'm on the under on here, although probably my favorite play of this whole slate is Noah Brown for the Commanders at 5,300 on FanDuel and 4,300 on DraftKings. He's probably my favorite play. I feel like they're going to key on McLaurin and he's going to gather all of the Steelers' attention on defense. So I like it to open up Noah Brown a little bit more, and he's so cheap. I don't like Pickens' price at 7,000, and I hate counting on Russell Wilson. I know his 3 interception game is coming, and this could be it. The Commanders added Marshawn Lattimore this week, so maybe this is his bad game.
Pickens is tough because I watch the Steelers play. I always kind of have the thought to myself of, wow, he looks good. He looks like a dominant receiver. And then you check his stat line at the end of the game and it never shows up that way. And he's had so many touchdowns called, like he had the double left foot the other week. He had one called back from penalty. And I just feel like he has probably scored at least double the amount of touchdowns that he's actually gotten credit for. There's just always something going on. And I am willing to buy in that this is this week. I feel like it's kind of one of those narratives where it's like, this player's good. If I just keep sticking with him, I can't be wrong every single time. But he really hasn't shown up for his price, too.
He showed up one week. We played him that week. I said, okay. But I think that's like all I want to do in a season is 1 week. He gets 1 week and he already had it.
And we found it, and we don't need
We
to
found it.
return.
Yep. We don't need to go there ever again.
I think Brian Robinson, if he's healthy, some to monitor for the Thursday, Friday practices. If he's healthy, I like him in the spot. At home, favorite matchup.
What about with
Nope.
Eckler? I think Judy disagrees there.
Yeah. I don't.
He just gets so much work in the red zone that I'd be okay with it.
Well, let's move on to Minnesota at Jacksonville briefly. I think the most recent news is that Trevor Lawrence won't be playing this weekend, so that makes this more of a is Minnesota scoring all 44 points of this over-under?
Probably.
Yeah. I think Minnesota is probably the cleanest team to stack this week, just with elite pass catching options in Jefferson, Addison, and Hawkinson, kind of building what's left of your salary, and then Darnold is a pretty reasonable price. Is there anyone on Jacksonville's side with Mac Jones that you think can bring it back to have a full stacked up game, or are you really just focusing on that Minnesota side?
I actually don't like this game at all because they have to do so little. And Minnesota hasn't shown me that they just want to run up the score like the Lions do. So I don't want to pay for their pass catchers to go out there and get one touchdown. I don't want this to be the Detroit Lions game that scores 50 points and everyone gets one touchdown and I spent 9,000 for Justin Jefferson. So I have concerns that that's exactly what's going to happen in this game. I don't think Jacksonville can put up any sort of fight. They've got to be completely deflated on with all of the injuries that they've suffered over the last couple weeks. So the only play I like here is Aaron Jones and the Vikings just running the ball.
I like that. I think a lot of people will be in on the pass catching options and going Aaron Jones, great leverage, and then just get out. If you're
Alrighty.
of the mindset that you want to go on the pass catching options, the only Jacksonville person I'm comfortable with is ETN. Mac Jones, in his time in New England, would consistently check it down to the running backs, and ETN's a great pass catching back. Brian Thomas Jr. is completely out for me.
ETN over Bigsby?
ETN over Bigsby. I think he'll be healthier. It's just watching that hamstring injury.
Well, continuing on with teams that don't like to do too much. Philadelphia Eagles are headed over to Dallas. Anyone you want from this game?
I'm kind of the same point where you were at for the last game. I think it's going to be too one-sided. It is divisional, so maybe they have a little bit more motivation to run up the score, but with a backup quarterback under center and for Dallas, and Philly's prices are ridiculous. You have to pay so much for all those options that I'm really just out.
Yeah, I agree. I'm out too. Too expensive, and the Eagles seem very happy doing only what they need to do against every team and not showing anything more than they need to show. So I don't think
And
they
kind of
run it up here.
the common thread that we've up about some of these matchups is extreme blowouts, the backup running back getting some work. And this could be another spot where we have that with Kenneth Gainwell. In the only true blowout that the Eagles had, they had a 28-3 matchup against the Giants. He saw 14 touches, so he could do enough if he's playing that entire second half to pay off his price.
Yep, I agree.
Well, let's move on to Denver at Kansas City. Kansas City is favored by 8. Over-under is only 42, so we're getting to the bottom of our games here.
Yeah, I bet the Broncos -9 earlier in this week, so it's already moving down, and I'm pretty happy I took the 9 points. I think this stays closer than the line even has it.
Yeah, a -8 seems wrong for this game.
I agree. Yeah, I think we got two teams here that are going to be happy to play defense. The Chiefs have got to be just trying not to get Patrick Mahomes hit and let him take some pressure off of him, maybe by running Kareem Hunt. I just see this as a pretty low scoring game that I don't really want any part of, and it's pretty expensive. The only one that I can buy into is DeAndre Hopkins. He was priced before he had his big game on Monday night, so he still is cheap.
Yeah, it's weird. like looking at the lineups that caught me off guard that Xavier Worthy is still a higher price than him, I believe.
Yeah.
Or they're about the same, which is strange.
Yep.
Well, let's wrap this up with Tennessee at the LA Chargers. We're now below that 40 over under. LA Chargers are favored by 7. Is this going to be a one-sided game? Is there anyone here we want to spend money on?
I am interested if I need in my lineup a cheap quarterback. Herbert, since the bye week in the past 3 games, has been averaging 300 yards and over a touchdown, which they seemed very run happy to begin it, but then I think Harbaugh realized how good of a quarterback Justin Herbert actually is, and he's been getting it done with Quinten Johnson and Lad McConkey. So he's a cheap option. He's priced right above the backups, so somewhere to go in this game.
Yeah, I do like him. The only thing I don't like is both of these teams play slow football. There aren't a lot of plays involved when these two teams get in on the field. So I don't like that, the pace of play, but we can definitely keep McConkey and Herbert in there if we find somebody that we want to pay up for.
So if Levis is playing, does that make you like the defense more or less if they have their starting quarterback?
Probably less. Or which defense? The Chargers
The
defense?
Chargers defense.
I love
think
the
they're a little
Chargers
bit,
defense, either
yeah.
side.
And last, New England is headed to Chicago. Chicago's favored by 6. Over under is also below our 40 mark at 39. Anyone to keep maybe a cheap save some money play here, or no one?
I think New England's looked a little bit better than a -6 line, but it is at home for Chicago. The only person I'm really interested in is the 2 Chicago running backs. Have never been that big of a Swift fan. DeAndre Swift, that is, but he's a good value here. He projects well in this matchup. They're heavily favored at home, and that's kind of the recipe.
He does. I do like DeAndre Swift. I know every time we brought him up this year, you've been like, no, we're not going there. So I do like putting him in here. It's kind of funny because I can get like way behind this game and start playing Drake May and Demario Douglas and get all in on it and bring it back with DeAndre Swift. And then I stop and I'm like, wait, there's a reason that Vegas thinks this is a 39-point game. And I probably shouldn't be overriding that because I wouldn't be betting on the over in this game. And I need to probably not get all excited about this one either.
Yeah, May looks fun for the future. I don't think this is his matchup.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump into building our lineup on FanDuel.
Let's go build it. So
and this doesn't include the Sunday morning game for the Sunday slate.
Correct, but it does include the Sunday night game. So I think I heard that, we both like Purdy, but let's save some money, assuming that there is somebody that we want to pay for. I don't have a lot of wide receivers I like this week and that I want to pay for, but I think we both said Justin Herbert. You want to go Herbert?
Yeah, I'm good with Herbert. I don't really like the top end wide receivers, but I think that kind of second tier really have some good names that you still kind of have to save up for if you want multiple of them.
Yeah, it's interesting looking here at the wide receivers and how many, we don't know if CeeDee Lamb's playing or A.J. Brown, Nico's out, Devontae Smith. They're all just kind of injured. And I probably could be convinced to pay for Deebo Samuel because I'm pretty sure he's going to play. But who do you want to pair Justin Herbert up with?
I think the only person I can kind of have any confidence with is McConkey. So Quinten Johnson had a huge game last week, but he had 4 targets, and I just don't think that's very prescriptive moving forward.
Yeah, I think McConkey is more long-term there, and we're saving a bunch here so we can do something else with some of our other positions. I think we both agreed on Aaron Jones at running back. Yep. What do you think about him?
I think he's a great call. I'm with you that I think that'll be not a competitive game, and rather than trying to shoot a dart of which pass catching is going to catch the 1 or 2 receiving touchdowns in that game, we just take Aaron Jones, get a piece of that offense, and lead that game.
Do you want to stay on running backs?
I would say
DeAndre Swift maybe, and I like to play another running back at that flex, so we could definitely bring back like Ray Davis or Kenneth Gainwell.
I'm good with Swift as our RB2.
It's your 1 week for playing DeAndre Swift.
It is. Just call
I
him
was about to say
Chicago running back and sleep easier.
So Ray Davis or Kenneth Gainwell? Which one do you like better for a
Ray
flex?
Davis.
Yeah, I think I like Ray Davis. He looked very talented in his touches.
He's definitely more explosive and he could be involved a lot of different ways, I feel like,
Yeah. I think if
in that
there
game.
are one or two pass catchers hurt, then he could get even a little bump in the receiving game.
So at this
Okay,
point,
so
we have filled out our quarterback, 2 running backs, a wide receiver, and we put a running back in our flex role. So we need a wide receiver, tight end, and defense.
we do. You got any more favorites at wide receiver?
I think I'm good with Deebo. I think a lot of people are going to be focused in on the CMC return, but really a healthy Deebo with no Brandon Ayuk, we would have been excited to play him no matter what.
That's very true. Okay, so we'll pay up for him. What do you think of Noah Brown? Or would
Noah
you
Brown,
rather go Amari Cooper?
I think I'd be on Cooper's side and
I
just
can
go
do Cooper.
lean in a little heavier on that dome game for Buffalo. How much money
Uh,
do we have saved left? So we have Herbert and McConkey, running backs Jones, Swift, and Davis, and then Debo and Cooper. So we
do you want to
have
go to
10,000
defense?
left, which is more than enough for our tight end defense. I think we can even kind of pay up and get the people we want for tight end defense.
How about Taysom Hill?
I'm good with Taysom Hill.
Hill over
Carries,
Cade Otton.
yeah, I think that's a pretty good savings, isn't it?
I think it's only 100.
Only 100.
Yeah,
I just
64
think
versus
Taysom Hill has
63.
to be involved, and we know he'll be around the goal line too. He's due for his one or two games where he's relevant, and I like his
Both,
position with just no
yeah.
one else in New Orleans.
Yeah,
I was about to
I
say
agree.
both teams are struggling with Tampa Bay and New Orleans are struggling with
I
people who
just like,
can go downfield.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I think everyone will be on Cade Otton because of his big game last week, and they don't have anyone new. So I think there'll be a lot on that, and maybe not so much on Taysom Hill.
I agree. So what options do we got for defense?
Broncos, that's an interesting one. Detroit Lions,
I kind of like the Lions.
Texans.
Um, or we just say that New England and Chicago game is dead and take the Patriots.
How do we
Mm,
feel about having Swift and then getting the Patriots?
it can still be
Yeah,
fine.
I I typically don't like having the running back opposing running back against the defense. So maybe
What do
that's our
you
tiebreaker.
What do you think about the Cardinals? They've
Yeah.
been playing decent
I,
defense.
And I think the Jets are hit or miss enough. They're at home. I'm fine paying that salary.
I mean, the Cardinals won somehow last week, and Murray was only 5 fantasy points. So
It's true.
That's true. Okay, we'll do the Cardinals.
So our main stack with our quarterback is the Chargers with Herbert and McConkey. We have no bring back on Tennessee side, but leaning more into the blowouts for our running backs with Aaron Jones and DeAndre Swift, and then Ray Davis in the flex, and then those kind of elite wide receivers with Deebo and Amari Cooper is where we're allocating our salary this week.
Yeah, right. We'll enter, save it. Let's pop over real quick to DraftKings. We'll take a couple minutes here. They do have a free contest this week with a prize. We are starting with 10,000 less over here. Do we want to go with the same kind of assumptions, or is there somebody that you like priced a little bit better over here? The quarterbacks get cheaper on, I feel like, but at the same time, we're dealing with less money.
They're a little cheaper. I think the top end is still kind of too expensive to pay up for in a non-tournament setting, but I would say Purdy. I like getting all of that offense, and I think a healthier 49ers will help Purdy.
Do you want to stack him with Samuel, since we played him on the
Yep,
other side?
go back to
Ooh,
Samuel.
he's down here at 6,900. Yeah, I definitely like that. Running backs.
I think a lot of similar plays. It's
Let's look
it's
for.
really tough for me to get off of Aaron Jones.
Yeah,
He's
I
at
agree.
6,700.
Yeah, let's go Aaron Jones. How much is Swift? They're so cheap and they're
Swift is
just like in
65.
such good games. And
Yeah,
over here,
just a
we'd
great price range for
prefer
that.
to play extra wide receivers versus running backs since we are playing full point PPR over here. Do you have some cheap wide receivers that you like?
I think for cheap options, if you really want to punt, you can go to Ray McLeod. And this is kind of off the London injury. We know they spread it out, and he doesn't have to do as much as Mooney to pay off his salary.
Okay.
The other option is Marquez Valdes-Scantling. He's at least an NFL receiver that's on the Saints roster, and so he's someone that can catch the ball.
Can we do Noah Brown?
Yeah, we can do a Noah Brown.
Thanks. My favorite player. I need to get him in somewhere, but we can
That's
still
true,
get
and I think
somebody else.
the field will be really into McLaurin.
I do too. Yeah. I don't know that we need to go that cheap. That you were talking. We're cheap enough with Noah Brown, and we saved some there. So, who are some better wide receivers that you might like?
I think in the next tier, I would like that kind of option for the Bills. So Cooper, Shakir.
Let's see where Cooper
I don't know
is.
how much of a savings we're getting between the two. They're pretty comparable on FanDuel.
So 5,800 or 6,000. Not a lot. Let's go Shakir.
Wow. Yeah. For our tight end, I think we got some options. So I liked Evan Ingram, but that was before the Lawrence injury. I think he's kind of off the board. I do kind of want some exposure to Kyle Pitts, 4,800. And then I'm also good with punting down to the New Orleans tight ends as well.
Are they any cheaper? Was
So Pitts is
Taysom
4,800.
Hill. Oh yeah, we
Taysom
save
Hill's
800.
4,000. And Jawan Johnson's all the way at the bottom at 3,300.
Let's see if we can fit Pitts in there.
Sounds good.
So at flex, we'd like wide receivers. How do you feel about Demario Douglas?
I think he's good. What's his salary?
4,400.
Yeah, he's been their number one option, and I think he has some chemistry with May. That's a fair price.
And we still have 3,900. Oh wow, we can afford pretty much whoever we want.
Maybe we just pay up for the Chargers defense in this case
Yeah.
at home,
Or
and
the
we have
Vikings.
the salary for it.
You like the Chargers or the Vikings better?
I think I do like the Chargers better in that
Right.
way. I think they're just going to play very conservative. We know that Will Levis will not play conservatively if he plays, so that's a lot more opportunities for sacks and turnovers.
Yeah.
Jacksonville is playing with a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go with the Chargers here. We got it.
Sounds good. So our line, we kind of got away from the Chargers offense and just took their defense, leaned into the 49ers with Purdy and Deebo. Kind of were pretty consistent with our running backs. Aaron Jones and Swift just look like great plays this week. And we wanted some exposure to the Washington side, so picked up Noah Brown. Then for Buffalo, we got Khalil Shakir, and then a high upside tight end play with Kyle Pitts. Demario Douglas does, for a number one wide receiver, very cheap price.
Yeah, I think this is going to be how the lineups are going to be this week, and a bit all over the place in many of these games rather than focusing on one game for everything.
I agree. I think this is a week to get a little strange and not follow the traditional rules.
Pick some edge cases who you think are gonna have a big week.
Yeah.
Well, I think that wraps us up for building some lineups. I'm glad we got to build one on DraftKings today. It's been a while since we've done that, and definitely is a different mindset, especially with going with the wide receiver for your flex instead of the running back due to the scoring differences. We do have a free contest this weekend. It's a free FanDuel contest. The link is in the description. We'd love to have you join us. Good luck and happy football watching.